Hey guys, now this video playlist is going to be all about recreating different lighting setups that we commonly see in cinematography, but mainly in studio photography. So like Rembrandt lighting, loop, split, what back, key, fill all mean. And to start this off, I just want to go over a couple really quick things here that we've been using over the last couple of weeks. So remember that we've been using Maya projects, and hopefully you've been doing this since that activity where you created them, but every single time we're going to start a Maya scene or build upon something we've created, we want to set the project first. So obviously this is one of those cases where I already have a project established. This is for the character. So inside of Maya, so we've got the application open first. We're going to go to File, Set Project. Okay, find your folder wherever you have your character project. Just select that root folder, set, and then go to Open. And you should notice that you're seeing your Maya files in the Scenes folder. So I'm going to open up the one for me called Character Challenge. You're looking for the one after you've already set up the background. So there should be a scene that you have two different background images, and each of them are in different positions, and they match the two different cameras. So this angled camera looks this way. This is the background behind the character. This guy right here in the front looks this way. There's the background for the front right behind the character. Okay, so we're going to use these and just toggle them on and off depending on which one of the cameras we're going to be using. So we'll probably start with the front one for now. Okay, we're going to turn that on. And I'm going to immediately save my Maya file as a new scene. Okay, so let's do Maya ASCII. You can use a binary if you need to. That's also fine. Okay, and there we go. We're saved. Now, the first thing we want to do is go over Rembrandt lighting. And I'll show you what Rembrandt lighting looks like. Okay, so Rembrandt lighting, if you look at the guide that's included with the activity, it is in here. It's right here. This is a couple different variations of it. And these are all trying to do the same thing. The main idea, though, even if you look at the different light sources here, whether Rembrandt with a softbox, Rembrandt through a Brawley, or honeycomb, these are just different types of filters and effects that are causing the light to reflect or bounce or get cropped through something. But the main idea is the same thing. With Rembrandt, you're coming from one side. It doesn't have to be the left. It could be the right side. But you're going to come from the side almost at like a 45-degree angle. And what you're looking for is mainly this little triangular shape right here on the cheek. Okay, so we're trying to create that, but there's really just going to be one main light source. So to do this, what we're going to do is first off set up the split view. I'm going to have one of these guys using the camera we're going to use. So we're going to use front cam. Okay, you can see there we go. I have the resolution gate turned on. If we wanted to, we could turn on the wires, but you can see essentially we're going to get just this character from the front, and now I can use this other viewer as perspective, and this is going to be the one where I'm moving the light around, and I'm going to watch how it renders and updates over here. So for this type of light source, we do have some freedom on maybe choosing if we want to do a rectangular or a disc. They're both going to be fine. You can see in the example here, this looks, according to the image, maybe more like a disc light, but even a rectangular light is going to be totally fine. So I don't really care which one of these two you're going to pick. They're both going to work. Let's do maybe the rectangular one for this one. We'll change it up and do a disc in another video. So I'm making the light. We're going to move it over. And I'm going to try to match that same photo here. So we are going to have it come from this side. Now, I'm going to scale it up. Let's make it a little bit bigger. One thing I might want to do, though, before I get too far here, since I am going to be scaling the light, you may remember in one of the other videos from earlier in the week, I was talking about how when you scale light source up, it's going to change the intensity. So let me just aim this at the surface real quick so you can see this. So have it aiming at the model. We'll turn on the render button. Okay, it's very dark, but when I hit R and scale the light up, see how that is making the character a lot brighter? Not really wrong necessarily, and you guys may decide that that doesn't really bother you, but when I scale the light, what I'm usually doing is trying to soften the shadows or allow light to wrap around the surface more or less, and I don't want the intensity to constantly change every time I do that. So one of the first things you probably want to do here is when you make your light source, immediately go to the attributes for it in the attribute editor, go on in the advanced section, turn on normalize right off the bat. So just check that on, close out. Now when you turn on normalize, you're going to notice that by scaling the light, it does not get any brighter. That's totally fine. So what we're going to do is just raise exposure up at 1 increment values here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, until eventually we see something. And I'll probably make a big jump at the beginning because I don't really know how sensitive this is going to be. Okay, so 8, 10, 11 is going to double it again. It's just maybe 14. Okay, this is actually pretty good. I could go higher. What I'm trying to do is prevent the render from getting maybe too blown out. And I'm not quite there, but you can see I'm almost bordering on some areas becoming flat and lost because I'm overexposing the detail. So somewhere around 14, maybe 14.5 in this case, based on my distance, looks pretty good. And I'm kind of coincidentally not that far off from Rembrandt. So let's go over here and just check this out one more time. Okay. Actually, we can just even load up the reference image in this case. It's probably the same thing. So this is my example of Rembrandt, which is pretty similar to what we were seeing in the images. So I want to get that cast shadow. I need more light to hit here. So my issue currently looking at this thing is my light is probably too far to the side, and so I can't get past the bridge of the nose. So let's just move this out. One tip here too about moving a light. If you double click on the transform tool on the left, when this thing pops up, you may notice that you're still in world space. And world space means when you move the object, it doesn't matter how it's rotated. It always translates in world space coordinates X, Y, Z. So see how if I wanted to move the light side to side, I can't really do that. So what if you can do, again, if you double click on the transform tool, change this to object. Now notice how the transform axis is matching the rotation. So I'm going to turn it, W, I can now move the light side to side. And as I do that, if I go back this way, you can see how we're losing some of the light on the side, the right side of the character. We're going to open that up, and eventually we can start to see that triangle forming. Now my issue right now is I probably have a little bit too much light creeping up into this section. I want to get a little more under the brow line. So we're going to move this up and see how when I go up higher, I'm getting more top illumination. It's kind of causing a shadow to form right there below the brow. So let's just move this up a little bit, maybe a tiny bit more. If I wanted to, I could just try doing a rotate just to angle that down at the character just a little more than it currently is. Okay, let's go up. Okay, and I'm going to move this back just a little bit, just in case I have too much light on that side. Let's go check that out again. That's getting really close to what I have in the reference right here. So this feels like a pretty good spot. Really all I'm doing is looking at the placement, just your translation right now, and I'm keeping the rotation so it's always trying to aim at the character. There could be cases where you don't want to have the rotation aiming at the character. If you turn it, it tends to remove some of the intensity because you're focusing it on another part of the scene, like in this case, the background. But we're going to leave it like that. And probably the last call we would make here would be to change the softness of the shadows. This is where the scale comes in. And back on that other photo we had, that light setup, this is really what, in this case, these different Rembrandt examples are doing. Because you'll notice right here that, again, it says softbox, Brawley. If you just kind of compare the two, I know she's turning her head a little bit, so it's slightly different, but notice how harsh the shadows are here. Look at the size of the light source, the little icon. See how it's tinier almost like a smaller spotlight. This, because it has a softbox, means it's a light bulb in a white reflective box that's surrounding it. So it's giving it a much broader shape when it leaves and casts onto the character. Very, very similar to what this one's doing. This one just gets filtered through something that's sort of translucent. But they have kind of the same effect, where this is a larger light source, diffusing the light, softening the shadows. Smaller light source, sharper shadows. This one is kind of similar to the other Brawly. It's where it's just this one is bouncing backwards off it as opposed to casting through it. But again, really all this comes down to is how sharp or blurry do you want the shadows. Thankfully, we don't have to go in there and set up reflective, materials and soft boxes to do this. Maya makes it a little bit easier for us. So because I do have this normalize thing turned on, I don't have to really worry about the intensity changing. I can just go in here and play around with the size. So if I make it smaller, see how the shadows are getting much, much sharper. Very high contrast. Scale it up. Okay, and now we're introducing softer shadows. And you can get kind of creative here and decide, do I want a wider light to soften it more, going around the character? That still looks kind of interesting. Or do I want to go with a taller light where the shadow from the nose isn't changing so much, but it might be causing more light to wrap over the top of the character, or perhaps beneath the chin if I kept going. But I think somewhere around there looks pretty good. The only thing I'm missing in this case is a color. And you'll notice there's a very subtle warmth in this compared to what I had. Let me see if I can scale that in so you can see that. Yeah, see how this is little, not red, but just warmer. That's just a true white. This is the color temperature. So we're going to turn on temperature and enable it. Let's see what it looks like at default. That's already not that far off. I'm probably a little too cool. So in this case, we know that temperature, lower values are warmer. So let's just go down and increment to 500. Okay, 6,000. Let's compare that one. That's actually probably very, very close. I think the only difference I'm seeing, if I'm comparing it to the reference, is this side right here is a little brighter. This one's a little muted. Now, I could fix it by bumping up intensity. I could also play with the distance, because obviously if I move the light closer, you'll notice that also has a similar effect to intensity where it tends to brighten up that side of the character. So maybe we'll try that. And that is a really close match. So that is Rembrandt lighting. And it's very easy to do from the other side. So if you wanted to, you could take the light. If you want to try it again just for practice, flip it over here, see if you can recreate it from the other side. But once you get one of these lights set up and you're pretty happy with it, like I feel really good about this one. It's a really nice, simple light setup. Something you guys will be using quite a bit in your own personal projects. So I would, when you're done with this whole activity, I would highly, highly recommend saving this and coming back to it later so you can use or at least understand how you did these different light setups. This is really fun stuff. But because we're doing so many different setups, one other key component to this is every time we finish one or start one, let's make sure we're naming the light and putting it on a display layer. So we're going to call this Rembrandt Light. I'm going to take this light, we're going to go over here to the display layers, make a new layer with that object or that light. Okay, we're hitting the button, and you can see if I turn it on and off, that light is assigned. Let's double click on the layer, rename it Rembrandt Light Layer. So I'm just adding the word layer on the end. So now that's named. And if I wanted to, if I need to go to a different angle, like we could see what this looks like from the other camera. So if I went to the angled cam, I'm going to turn off this background, turn on the other background, leave the light there, and we could see what the Rembrandt light source looks like from this angle. I don't necessarily know if it's any better. I still like it better from the front angle, but at least you can see the benefit of turning those backgrounds on and off, changing your camera angle, and you can very easily test it out from different spots.